You think you can ruin my day? Huh? Look at me! Say one more word and I swear!
Sorry, I didn't mean...
Stop, please. Hey, look. The sound of the slap silenced the entire ballroom. Glasses froze midair. Every guest turned as the bride's hand hung trembling in the air, and the older black server straightened, her cheek burning red beneath the chandelier's glow. For a moment, no one breathed. Then came the whisper that shattered everything. "That's his mother." The bride's smile vanished. The room erupted. Cameras flashed, and beneath the shimmering lights of her own wedding, her world began to crumble. This is the story of how one act of arrogance exposed a lifetime of blindness. Comment your city below. Where are you watching from? The halls shimmered under soft golden light, every chandelier reflecting a lifetime of dreams coming true. Lila stood at the center of it all, radiant in lace and confidence, her smile polished for perfection. Guests whispered about her elegance, the designer dress, and the flawless ceremony. Everything seemed to move in slow motion, the way fairy tales are supposed to. To everyone watching, she was the perfect bride, marrying into a wealthy, respected family. But beneath the glittering perfection, something darker stirred, something even she couldn't see coming. Lila had grown up believing the world belonged to those who looked like her. Her beauty, charm, and privilege had always opened doors, earned her admiration, and silenced doubts. She'd never had to question her place or her power. And when she met Ethan, handsome, kind, and from an influential family, she thought life had reached its peak. Their love story, at least to her, was proof that dreams rewarded those who fit the picture. As the wedding reception unfolded in a lavish ballroom, waiters moved like shadows, refilling glasses and clearing plates with quiet precision. Among them was an older black woman with kind eyes and a posture that carried both grace and exhaustion. She worked silently, her expression unreadable, her movements efficient. No one noticed her, and that suited her fine. But when her gaze met Lila's, something flickered. Familiarity, perhaps, or pain. The band played softly in the background, couples danced, and laughter rippled through the air. Lila felt untouchable, her crown of social glory complete. She didn't know that the woman serving drinks held a truth powerful enough to shake her world. Nor did she realize that by the night's end, her perfect story would unravel, not through gossip or scandal, but through one impulsive, cruel act she would never be able to take back. Something was about to happen, something that would turn celebration into reckoning. The laughter echoed across the ballroom, elegant and artificial, the kind that fills space but not hearts. Lila moved from table to table, glowing with champagne and compliments. Every guest seemed to adore her, every glance, every praise feeding her confidence. But when a glass of red wine slipped from her hand and splattered onto her pristine white dress, her composure cracked. Gasps rippled through the room. And before she could react, the older black server appeared, napkin in hand, offering calm assistance. "Let me help you, ma'am," the woman said softly. Her voice was kind but firm, the kind that carried experience. To everyone else, it was a gesture of grace. But to Lila, in that moment of embarrassment, it felt like pity. She pulled back sharply, her face tightening as whispers spread. Ethan wasn't nearby. He was greeting relatives. The cameras were still rolling. And Lila, the bride who had built her life on appearances, felt her world tilt. Insecurity turned to anger. "Just clean it up," she snapped, her tone slicing through the music. The woman didn't flinch, just continued wiping the spill. Her calmness made Lila's fury grow. Minutes later, as the woman returned to collect empty glasses, a murmur spread among nearby guests. Someone whispered about the nerve of that woman. Lila overheard and, emboldened by her audience, turned the situation into a performance. She laughed, loud enough for others to hear. "Some people don't know their place," she said, her words dripping with mockery. The room quieted. A few guests exchanged uneasy glances, but Lila didn't stop. She wanted to reassert control, to remind everyone she was untouchable, superior, flawless. When the woman passed by again, Lila reached out, her hand trembling with a toxic mix of arrogance and alcohol. In a sudden burst of anger, she slapped her. The sound cracked through the music like thunder. Glasses froze midair. The band stopped playing. Every eye turned. The woman didn't move, didn't cry out. She simply straightened, the mark of the slap reddening her cheek under the golden light. Her eyes met Lila's, not with rage, but with a quiet knowing that silenced the room more than any outburst could. For the first time, Lila felt something foreign, unease. The air thickened with shame and confusion. Guests shifted in their seats, unsure how to respond. Some looked away. Others whispered. Ethan, hearing the commotion, rushed over. His expression changed from confusion to horror as he saw the woman. "Mom?" he breathed. The words sliced through the tension. The guests gasped. The silence became unbearable. Lila's heart stopped, her hand still frozen midair. The world around her blurred as realization set in. The server, the woman she had just humiliated, was her husband's mother. And she had no idea. Every mask Lila had ever worn began to crack. The walls of privilege she had built around herself started collapsing, one horrified whisper at a time. The perfect wedding had just become a public reckoning. The ballroom felt like it had stopped breathing. The golden lights, the music, the chatter, all gone, swallowed by a silence so heavy it felt alive. Lila stood frozen, her palms still trembling, her face pale as realization scorched through her. Around her, the guests shifted uneasily, unsure whether to comfort her or recoil from what they'd just witnessed. Ethan's mother, the woman she had just struck, stood tall, her cheek still red but her dignity unbroken. Her gaze didn't accuse, didn't plead. It simply saw Lila in a way no one else ever had, and that sight alone felt like punishment enough. Ethan's voice broke the silence, hoarse and low. "Lila, what have you done?" The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. Shame burned hotter than any anger could. The weight of every assumption, every smug smile, every entitled thought came crashing down in an instant. The guests began to murmur again, their whispers like knives. She hit her husband's mother? My God! Cameras that had once captured love now filmed humiliation. Lila wanted to disappear, to rewind the moment, to erase the truth. But it was too late. The older woman turned away, her voice calm but resolute. "You showed me exactly who you are. No anger. Just truth." Then she walked out, leaving the wedding, the family, and the illusion behind her. And as the doors closed, the applause that had once celebrated love now echoed as judgment. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. Days passed, but the echoes of that night refused to fade. The video, captured by countless phones, spread like wildfire across social media. What had begun as a perfect wedding became a symbol of something much deeper, the ugliness that hides behind privilege and the painful cost of ignorance. Lila's world, once defined by admiration, now crumbled under public outrage. Sponsors withdrew, friends vanished, and her name became synonymous with disgrace. Ethan didn't speak to her for weeks. His heart was torn between love and disbelief. His mother, meanwhile, stayed silent, not seeking revenge, but peace. She had lived through decades of subtle and open racism, of being overlooked, undervalued, and underestimated. But that night, her silence had become her strength. Without raising her voice, she had exposed everything wrong with how people like Lila saw the world. Lila, alone in the aftermath, replayed the moment again and again. Each time she saw more than just the slap, she saw herself. Her upbringing, her entitlement, the layers of bias she never questioned. For the first time, she understood that racism doesn't always wear hate's face. It often hides behind ignorance, laughter, or silence. Months later, she wrote a public apology, not for sympathy, but because the guilt refused to leave her. The world didn't forgive easily, and maybe it shouldn't. But her story became a mirror for thousands to reflect on their own blind spots, because sometimes the most brutal truth isn't what we see in others, but what we finally see in ourselves. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the truths we all need to face.